This happened 6 months ago, and I'm still not sure anyone believes me. My name is William. I'm 79 years old. Last April, I had a stroke. Not a severe one, thank God, but enough that I needed rehabilitation. My son Robert didn't want me going home alone right away. Said I needed somewhere with medical staff, somewhere I could recover safely. He found a place called Meadowbrook Recovery Center. It had good reviews, nice facilities, skilled nursing staff. Insurance covered most of it. I agreed to stay there for 6 weeks while I regained my strength and mobility. The first week was fine. The staff was attentive. The food was decent. My room was clean. I had a roommate, an older gentleman named Frank who'd had hip surgery. He was quiet, kept to himself. We didn't talk much, which was fine by me. But on the 8th night, something changed. I woke up around 3 in the morning. Needed to use the bathroom. I sat up slowly, still getting used to the limited mobility on my left side. That's when I noticed Frank's bed was empty. The sheets were pulled back. His walker was still there, but Frank was gone. I figured he'd gone to the bathroom, but then I heard it. Singing. Coming from the hallway. A woman's voice. Old-fashioned sounding, like something from the 1940s. I got out of bed carefully, grabbed my cane, opened the door and looked out into the hallway. The lights were dimmed for nighttime. Most of the other doors were closed, but down at the end of the hall I could see someone, a woman, elderly, wearing a white nightgown. She was walking slowly down the corridor, and she was singing that same old song. I couldn't quite make out the words. I watched her turn the corner and disappear. I stood there for a moment confused. Patients weren't supposed to be wandering around at 3 in the morning. Where were the nurses? Why wasn't anyone stopping her? I went back into my room. Frank still wasn't back. I waited another 10 minutes. Then I pressed the call button for the nurse. A young nurse named Amy came in, asked what I needed. I told her Frank was missing and there was a woman wandering the hallways singing. Amy looked at Frank's empty bed. Her expression changed. She radioed something to someone. Then she left quickly. 20 minutes later, Frank was brought back to the room. He looked confused, disoriented. When I asked him where he'd been, he said he didn't know. Said he woke up in the day room, didn't remember how he got there. The next morning, I asked Amy about the woman I'd seen. She looked uncomfortable. Said there was no woman, said the security footage showed the hallways were empty except for Frank. I insisted I'd seen her. Amy just said, sometimes the medication can cause confusion. That I should try to get more rest, but I knew what I'd seen, and I wasn't on any medication that would cause hallucinations. That night I stayed awake, watching, waiting. Around 2:45, I heard it again. The singing. I got up immediately, looked out into the hallway. There she was, the same woman, same white nightgown, walking down the hall, singing. This time, I followed her, keeping my distance, using my cane to stay balanced. She walked slowly, never looked back, never acknowledged my presence, just kept walking and singing. She turned into the West Wing, the part of the facility that was under renovation. There were plastic sheets hanging over doorways, construction equipment. I almost turned back. But I needed to know where she was going. I followed her through the plastic sheeting, into a dark hallway. The construction had stripped this area down to the studs in some places, exposed wiring, concrete floors. It didn't look like part of a medical facility at all. The woman stopped at the end of the hallway, in front of a door that had been painted over. She stood there for a moment. Then she raised her hand and knocked. 3 times. Slow, deliberate. The door opened, not by anyone visible, it just swung open, and the woman walked through. I stood there, frozen, Every instinct told me to turn around, to go back to my room, to forget what I was seeing, but I couldn't. I walked forward, slowly, until I reached that door. I looked inside. The room was empty, completely empty. No furniture, no woman, nothing. Just bare walls and a single window with bars on it. But the temperature, the room was freezing. My breath came out in clouds, and there was a smell. Antiseptic. But underneath it, something else. Something old and rotten. I backed away, turned around, and nearly screamed. Frank was standing right behind me, in his pajamas, no walker, no cane, just standing there in the dark hallway, staring at me. I asked him how he got there. He didn't answer, just stared. His eyes were vacant, empty, like no one was home. Then he spoke, but it wasn't his voice. It was higher, feminine. He said, "She wants you to remember." I stumbled backward, fell. My cane clattered to the floor. Frank just stood there. Then he turned and walked back the way we'd come, moving normally, like he hadn't just been barely mobile for the past week. I don't know how long I sat there on that cold floor. Maybe minutes, maybe longer. Eventually, a nurse found me, a different one. Older woman named Margaret. She helped me up, asked what I was doing in the construction area. I tried to explain about the woman, about Frank, about the door. Margaret's face went pale. She didn't say anything, just helped me back to my room. Frank was in his bed, asleep, like nothing had happened. The next morning, I demanded to speak to the director, told him everything. He listened politely. Then he told me that patients sometimes get disoriented at night, that the facility was very old and had a lot of history, that sometimes people imagine things, but then he said something that stuck with me. He said, "Mr. Hartley, I would recommend you don't go into the West Wing again. That area is off limits for a reason." I asked what reason. He said it was for safety, because of the construction. But the way he said it, the way he looked at me, I knew there was more to it. I talked to other patients, quietly, carefully. Asked if they'd experienced anything strange. Most said no. Looked at me like I was crazy. But one woman, a lady named Doris, pulled me aside. She said she'd heard the singing too, had seen the woman in white, had followed her once, just like I had. She said the West Wing used to be the psychiatric ward, back in the 1960s, before mental health treatment had reformed, before they shut down facilities like that. Doris said a patient had died in that ward, a young woman, early 20s. She'd been committed by her family for depression. Had been there for 8 years. The treatments back then were barbaric. Electroshock, ice baths, isolation. The woman had finally died in one of those isolation rooms. The exact room I'd found, the one with the barred window. The official cause of death was listed as heart failure. But Doris said the real story was different. Said the woman had been left in that room for days without food or water as a punishment for being difficult. By the time staff checked on her, it was too late. Her name was Helen Crawford. And according to Doris, she's still there, still walking those halls, still singing the songs she used to sing to comfort herself during those long nights alone. And she's looking for company, looking for people to remember her, to acknowledge what happened to her. I left Meadowbrook 3 days later, against medical advice. I told Robert I'd rather recover at home. He was upset but understood when I explained that I wasn't comfortable there. I didn't tell him the real reason, didn't tell him about Helen. But here's the thing that still haunts me. The night before I left, Frank disappeared again. They found him in the morning, in the West Wing, in that room with the barred window. He was sitting in the corner, unresponsive. They took him to the hospital. I called Robert a week later, asked if he'd heard anything about Frank. Robert made some calls, found out Frank had been transferred to a psychiatric facility, that he'd had some kind of breakdown, that he kept talking about a woman who wanted him to stay, who wouldn't let him leave. I think about Frank a lot, about whether he's okay, about whether he'll ever be himself again, and I think about all the other patients at Meadowbrook, the ones who don't know about the West Wing, about Helen, about what she wants. Because she doesn't just want to be remembered, she wants company. She wants others to feel what she felt, that isolation, that abandonment, that despair, and she's not going to stop until she gets it. I'm telling you this because there are facilities all over this country with dark histories, places that were hospitals, or asylums or institutions, places where terrible things happened. And sometimes those places remember, or the people who died there remember, and they reach out. If you or someone you love is in a care facility, pay attention. If they start acting strangely, wandering at night, talking about people who aren't there, don't dismiss it. Don't assume it's just medication or confusion. Sometimes it's something else. Something that doesn't want to be forgotten, something that's looking for companionship in the only way it knows how. I got out of Meadowbrook. Frank didn't, and I have to live with that, with the knowledge that I could have warned him, could have told him to stay in the room at night, to ignore the singing, to not follow Helen into the West Wing. But I didn't. And now he's gone. Not dead, but not really alive either. Lost somewhere between this world and whatever Helen's world is. Don't let that happen to someone you love. Stay vigilant. Ask questions. And if something feels wrong, trust that feeling. Because sometimes the places we go to heal are the places that hurt us most. This happened about 8 months ago, and I still can't sleep with the lights off. My name is Patricia, and I'm a 74-year-old retired schoolteacher living in Charleston. I've lived in the same house for 42 years, the house my husband and I bought when we first got married. The house where we raised our 3 children. The house where Thomas died 5 years ago this past spring. After Thomas passed, my children kept suggesting I sell the place, move into something smaller, something more manageable, but I refused. This house held all my memories. Every room had a story. I wasn't ready to leave. I'd been living alone just fine. I had my routine, my garden, my book club. My neighbor Dorothy would check on me every few days. I was independent, capable. I didn't need anyone worrying about me. But then things started changing. It began small. Items moving. I'd put my reading glasses on the kitchen counter and find them in the bedroom. I'd leave a book on the coffee table and it would turn up on the dining room table. At first, I blamed my memory. I'm getting older. These things happen. Maybe I was just forgetting where I'd put things. But then it got worse. I started hearing footsteps upstairs, at night, when I was in bed. Slow, deliberate footsteps, walking from the master bedroom to the bathroom. The same path Thomas used to take. The same creaky floorboards in the same sequence. The first time I heard it, my heart nearly stopped. I lay in bed, frozen, listening to someone walking around the second floor of my house. I'd grabbed the phone, ready to call 911, but then the footsteps stopped. Silence. I waited for 20 minutes, working up the courage to go check. When I finally climbed the stairs, there was no one there. Every room was empty, every window locked. I told myself it was the house settling. Old houses make noises. That's normal. But the footsteps came back the next night, and the night after that. Always the same time. 2:17 in the morning. Always the same path. I mentioned it to Dorothy during one of her visits. She looked concerned. asked if I'd had anyone check the house for intruders. I said no, because I knew there was no intruder, not a living one, anyway. Dorothy suggested I come stay with her for a few nights, get some rest. But I refused. This was my house. I wasn't going to be scared out of my own home. That's when other things started happening. I'd wake up and find all the kitchen cabinets open, every single one. I'd close them before bed and find them open again in the morning. The TV would turn on by itself. Always the same channel, the History Channel, Thomas's favorite. One morning, I came downstairs and found a cup of coffee sitting on the kitchen table, still warm. I live alone. I hadn't made coffee yet, but there it was, in Thomas's favorite mug, fixed exactly the way he used to drink it. 2 sugars, no cream. That's when I started to understand. This wasn't a stranger in my house. This wasn't something trying to scare me. This was Thomas, my husband. Still here, still going through his routines. Most people would find that comforting, I suppose. The idea that their deceased spouse is still around, still present. But I didn't find it comforting. I found it deeply unsettling. Because the Thomas I knew, the man I'd been married to for 48 years, would never want to frighten me. He was gentle, kind, protective. If he was here, if his spirit, or whatever you want to call it, was still in this house, why would he be doing things that scared me? Unless it wasn't really him. That thought terrified me more than anything. The idea that something was pretending to be Thomas, using his habits, his routines, his favorite things, to make me think he was still here. I called my daughter Rebecca, told her everything. She drove down that same day. She's always been practical, level-headed. I thought she'd tell me I was imagining things, that I needed to see a doctor, but she didn't. She stayed with me for 3 nights, and she experienced it too. The first night, we were both in the living room watching TV. Around 9 at night, we heard footsteps upstairs. Rebecca looked at me, asked if that's what I'd been hearing. I nodded. She immediately went upstairs to check. Came back down 5 minutes later, pile. Said there was no one up there. But she'd felt something, a presence, a coldness in the master bedroom that wasn't natural. The second night, Rebecca woke me up at 3 in the morning. She was standing in my bedroom doorway shaking. Said she'd seen someone. A figure standing at the end of her bed, a man. She couldn't see his face clearly in the darkness, but he'd been wearing what looked like Thomas's old robe, the blue one he used to wear every morning. She turned on the light and the figure was gone. But the robe, which had been hanging in the guest room closet, was now lying on the bed, spread out, like someone had just taken it off. On the third night, we both agreed I couldn't stay in that house anymore. Not until we figured out what was happening. Rebecca wanted to call a priest, have the house blessed, but I wasn't sure that would help. I wasn't even sure what we were dealing with. We packed a bag for me, and I went to stay at Rebecca's house. I've been there ever since. 8 months now. My house sits empty. Rebecca goes by once a week to check on it. She says everything seems normal when she's there. No footsteps, no open cabinets, no mysterious coffee. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. The thing I haven't told Rebecca or anyone else. The last night I was in that house before Rebecca came to get me, I had a dream. At least, I think it was a dream. I was lying in bed and Thomas was sitting in the chair next to me. The chair he used to sit in when he'd read before bed. He looked exactly as he had before he got sick. Healthy, solid, real. And he was smiling at me, that gentle smile I'd fallen in love with 50 years ago. He said, "Patricia, I need you to understand something. I'm not trying to scare you, I just don't want you to forget me. I'm afraid if you sell the house, If you move on, you'll forget. I told him I could never forget him, that he was part of me, that moving out of the house didn't mean forgetting him. He shook his head, said, "But the house remembers. The walls remember. Every moment we shared. If you leave, those memories stay here. And I stay here, trapped with them. You have to stay, Patricia. You have to keep me company." That's when I woke up, gasping, my heart racing, and I knew. Whatever was in that house, it wasn't Thomas, not really. It was something else, something that wanted me to stay, that needed me to stay. And that's why I left. Why I can't go back. My children want me to sell the house. They've been very patient letting me take my time to decide, but I can't sell it. Because if I sell it, some other family will move in, and whatever is in that house will do to them what it tried to do to me. I've contacted paranormal investigators, 3 different groups. They've all been to the house, done their readings and recordings and whatever it is they do. 2 of them said the house has residual energy, echoes of the past playing out. Nothing dangerous, but the 3rd group said something different. They said there's an intelligent presence in the house, something that's aware, something that responds to interaction. And they said it's tied to the master bedroom, to the place where Thomas died. They think it's been there longer than Thomas, that maybe it attached itself to him during his final days, fed on his energy, his memories, and now it's using those memories to try to keep me there, to keep someone there. I don't know if I believe all that. I don't know what I believe anymore. What I do know is that I can't go back to that house, and I can't sell it to someone else, so it sits empty, waiting. The footsteps probably still echo at 2:17 every morning. The cabinets probably still open themselves. The coffee probably still appears on the kitchen table. But there's no one there to see it, no one there to be frightened, no one there to stay. And maybe that's what makes it angry. Maybe that's why, when Rebecca goes to check on the house, she says she feels watched. Why she rushes through her inspections and leaves as quickly as possible. Why she started having nightmares about that house. It wants someone there. It needs someone there. And it's not going to stop until it gets what it wants. I'm 74 years old. I don't have that many years left. And I'm spending them in my daughter's guest room, afraid to return to the home I loved for over 4 decades. Afraid of whatever is waiting for me there. People say home is where the heart is, but what happens when your home doesn't want to let your heart leave? What happens when the place that held all your best memories becomes the thing you fear most? I don't have answers. I just have my story, and the hope that sharing it might help someone else who's experiencing something similar. Because I know I'm not alone. I know there are other elderly people living in old houses. Houses with history. Houses with memories. Houses with things that don't want to be forgotten. If you're one of those people, I want you to know something. You don't have to stay. You don't owe anything to a house, no matter how many memories it holds. Your safety matters more than sentiment. Leave if you need to. Don't let guilt or love or memory keep you in a place that doesn't feel right anymore. Because sometimes the things we love can become the things that hurt us most. I learned that lesson in the house on Maple Street. The house I can see from Rebecca's window. The house with the lights that sometimes turn on by themselves. The house that's waiting for me to come home. But I'm not going back. No matter how much it wants me to. No matter how much it looks like Thomas standing in the window. I'm not going back.